Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's International Classroom Partnering Showcase event. I'm Kim Rapp, Assistant Vice President for International Relations and a member of the Buffett Institute's Global Council. Last year, the Office of the Vice President for International Relations and the Buffett Institute for Global Affairs launched a small grant program for faculty willing to partner with their peers at Northwestern's partner institutions abroad to provide our students with an international experience during the period we could not travel. We received and funded a number of creative proposals, and you'll hear from 7 grantees today. Before we turn to our presenters, though, let me share the program. First, we will hear welcome remarks from Deborah Greenspan, Vice President for International Relations, and from Annalise Riles, Associate Provost for Global Affairs and Executive Director of the Roberta Buffett Institute for Global Affairs. Then we will hear from our 7 panelists. If you have questions for any of our faculty members, please drop your questions in the chat or use the Q&A function. We will direct the questions to the speakers after they have shared their work. So without further ado, please let me welcome Deborah Greenspan, Vice President for International Relations, to say a few words. Deborah?
Thank you, Kim. And I want to welcome everybody to this showcase, especially the speakers. I am so grateful to you who answered our call for proposals and who worked so hard during the pandemic to establish collaborations with our partner abroad. I am looking forward to hearing about your particular experiences. I'm sure everybody's very excited. International partnerships, as you know, have been at the center of our internationalization efforts at Northwestern, and most of the projects we supported were for our faculty to work with their counterparts abroad at our partner institutions where possible. We will continue to work with you to connect you to the right faculty abroad, to encourage not only teaching collaborations, but hopefully other programmatic and research initiatives in the future. This project, as Kim said, is a collaboration of my office and the Buffett Institute and was designed to provide an international experience to our students during this difficult time of pandemic. However, we have learned a lot from this experience, and we are now committed to continuing this program even after study abroad is restored and even after students and faculty are again able to travel. First of all, not all students can study abroad. In fact, about 40% or fewer study abroad. Secondly, as a truly global university, we must internationalize our teaching and research. International collaborations in teaching provide a totally different international experience to you and to our students and can become an invaluable part of our academic curriculum. We should continue to leverage our international partnerships to expand our academic offerings and to bring different types of expertise and worldviews into our classrooms. Class partnering projects and joint teaching can become important tools in our globalization efforts. So therefore, I'm glad you're attending the showcase, and I hope to see your proposals soon. We and our staff are here to help you. I want to thank Kim Rapp, Associate Vice President for International Relations, who administered the grants and worked closely with the faculty to find just the right partner abroad when needed. I want to also thank Sarah Tully and Carrie Fuse in the Global Learning Office at Buffett, who worked closely with Kim during the grant process and also in organizing today's event. And now let me introduce my partner in this project, Annalise Riles. Annalise is Executive Director of the Buffett Institute, as well as Associate Provost for Global Affairs. Annalise?
Well, thank you, Deborah. Thank you to you. And also, in addition to all the folks you thanked, thank you to our faculty committee who helped to evaluate the proposals. I think they were very helpful as well. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Annalise Riles. And as many of you know, the Northwestern Roberta Buffett Institute for Global Affairs has as its goal to bring together the brightest minds from across the university and around the world to address critical global challenges that can't be solved from a singular disciplinary or geographical perspective. We believe that the new genius is a collaborative genius, that as global challenges grow more complex, they demand thinking that transcends traditional silos of expertise or language or culture or geography. And that also means that we have to prepare the next generation of global leaders. And it's imperative that they too have opportunities to learn, to think, and work on projects alongside their peers from other parts of the world, to get confused together, to make mistakes together, to misunderstand each other, to learn from those experiences. And we also know that one of the most fruitful ways for faculty to find new connections in their research across distances of any kind, whether it be disciplinary or geographical, is often to teach together. That certainly has been my experience in my own teaching career. Now, as the world changed this year in unprecedented ways, we pivoted to virtual work. And we did this out of necessity. But I think what we've heard from faculty is that this may be one of those innovations that's worth sticking with us in the long run. Now, why would that be so? Well, Deborah already mentioned some of the reasons. First, reasons of equity. Not all students can study abroad, as Deborah mentioned, for whatever reason, because they are in a discipline that doesn't make it easy to do, because it's expensive, because they're an athlete. There's all kinds of reasons, but they still need to have a global experience. A second reason is reasons of access. There are thinkers who cannot join our campus conversation in person for a variety of reasons, whether it's the travel cost or visa restrictions. And so we need to find other ways for them to join the conversation. The third reason is fostering collaboration. We've heard many faculty say, I could start here in terms of global engagement. I could do a global collaborative campus conversation in the classroom. It seems like a doable first step. And finally, climate change. My own personal carbon footprint over the last few years included way too many miles flown. And so I want to make a commitment to reducing that. And one way of doing that is to find ways to do more valuable engagement virtually. So last summer, Northwestern Buffett launched a suite of opportunities called the Global Campus Collaborative Program, which were designed to support Northwestern faculty members' virtual international research and international teaching efforts. And we partners with the Office of Vice President for International Relations on this one piece of that larger initiative, which is classrooms partnering. And this year, as you've heard, we've awarded 11 grants to faculty across Northwestern, including the Bienen School of Music, the Medill School of Journalism, Integrated Marketing and Communications, the Pritzker School of Law, the School of Communications, the School of Social Policy and Education, the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. And we've had, these have involved connections with classrooms in Argentina, China, Ethiopia, France, Mexico, Singapore, Switzerland, Israel, and Taiwan. And as Deborah said, we're really excited to continue this next year. And let me add that it would be wonderful even to ramp it up next year, to increase the numbers and also give faculty more and better tools to make the process as easy, as high quality, and as fun as possible. So appreciate any guidance or ideas any of you have about that. So today we're going to hear from some of the faculty members who we supported over the past year. We're so grateful to them for their creativity and commitment. And we hope that their stories will inspire more of us to apply for this International Classroom Partnering Grant. You can apply anytime. There's a rolling deadline. And thank you to all for joining us today. Thank you. Deborah, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to step in. Thank you, Annalise. Thank you, Deborah. Ready to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Sarah Bartolomy. She is Associate Professor of Music Education in Bienen. Sarah?
Good afternoon. Thanks so much for introducing me. Thanks so much for being here. I'm just thrilled to share a little bit about this project. When I heard about the International Classroom Partnership, I thought it'd be a really rich opportunity to expand my winter graduate seminar in music education philosophy. So what I'm going to share is a little timeline of the development of the project, an overview of the activity, and then a little bit about the outcomes. So when I heard about it in October, I went onto the website, I looked at who the partnering institutions were, and I was thrilled to see Nanyang Technological University in Singapore was on the list because my wonderful colleague, Leonard Tan, is one of the leading scholars in music education philosophy, bringing Eastern perspectives into a topic that tends to be a little bit Eurocentric. And so I reached out to Leonard, he was on board. I immediately sent an inquiry to Kim Rapp to talk about the possibility of a music education philosophy ICP, and she encouraged me to apply. And so you can see here the next day I submitted a proposal. We met 4 times, Leonard and I, for about an hour each time. The most challenging thing really was the time zone. We always met on Friday, 7 a.m. in Chicago, 9 p.m. in Singapore. So we did some planning. We were notified of the award. And by January 15th, we launched our ICP. One of the first things we did was to identify collaboratively some objectives for the project. So on my end, it was co-curricular. So it was my Northwestern University graduate students. I was interested in enriching course content. On the other end, it was voluntary. So there were similar objectives, but not exactly the same. We did want all of the students to cultivate more international perspectives in music education. And we also wanted to kind of foster communication and collaboration for all the participants. Ideally, building a stronger, sustainable relationship between our departments, kind of at the macro level. So we engaged in 9 weeks of activity. It was based around the idea of completing common readings and then having discussions. And so over those 9 weeks, we did a variety of things. I wanted to have asynchronous introductions before we started convenings. And so we used the Flipgrid platform, as you can see here. They all created little meet and greet videos and introduced themselves to each other, which cut down on the amount of meet and greet activity we would need to do in that first synchronous meeting. We also paired them all with a peer dyad that would be their touch person throughout the course of the 9 weeks. And so those peer dyads contacted each other via email during that first week to make introductions. During weeks 2, 4, 6, and 8, we engaged in synchronous instruction, as you can see here in the Zoom room. We had common readings. Leonard and I would log in early. I would prepare some slides and prompts we would discuss. Everybody would come in, we had an hour of discussion, and then Leonard and I would stay on, usually for a little bit after, to kind of prep for the next 2 events in order that we might limit what we needed to do in between the convenings. And then in weeks 3, 5, 7, and 9, we engage in asynchronous discussion, as I mentioned, 7 a.m., 9 p.m. Across the whole quarter is a tall order for folks on both ends of this project. And so we did do some asynchronous discussion using the Padlet platform, in which Leonard and I would design prompts. Students would come in, they would post comments, they would comment on each other's, they would make connections, and we would wrap that into our next synchronous convening as well. Thinking about some of the outcomes, I identified 3. I kind of looked at the reflective work. I looked at those Padlet asynchronous discussions and kind of synthesized my understanding based on the lived experience of the project over those 9 weeks. And so one thing that came out was really content specific. More diverse global perspectives on this topic emerged, as you can see here from some of my students. And I observed this both in the writing of the students as well as in their interactions over the course of the 9 weeks. Additionally, this idea of broadly beyond just the topic of music education philosophy, but this idea of a broadened worldview really emerged. Folks were thinking about the opportunity and valuing interacting with diverse people on these topics over the course of time. And so that was another really kind of important outcome that I saw emerge. And then finally, really concretely, folks are really excited to have the opportunity to build their international networks. You can see my student Aaron here mentioned this idea that my music education research community is bigger than just here in the United States. And this was a really concrete opportunity to engage with those individuals. Overall, I will say that the feedback from the students was unanimously positive. Folks were grateful. They were thankful, especially for this opportunity during this very challenging pandemic year. It was a bright spot in my week, and I think also for the students as well. I'm really grateful also to Kim for kind of spearheading this initiative, for Annalise, for both of the vision of NU International Relations and Buffett for sponsoring this program. As you can see here, we had lots of stimulating discussion, lots to think about. I would encourage anybody here today to think about what the possibilities for this opportunity for an ICP grant, because it really was an enriching and meaningful experience, especially during a very challenging year. Leonard and I have some things cooking. We have things perhaps coming out of this relationship. So it's very exciting to see. My email's here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. I love that photo of your students. They're looking very philosophical. Our next speaker is Rivka Cook. Rivka had a very interesting course that I wish I could have taken about the secrets of Hispanic gastronomy. So Rivka?
Thank you so much, Kim, for introducing me. And I will share with you some PowerPoint. And I really wanted to say thank you. Sorry. I really want to say thank you to the Office of the Vice President for International Relations and Buffett Institute for Global Affairs to give me the opportunity to share with you this project. I work with students from the University Torcuato Di Tella in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and with my students in Spanish 121-3 special topic. My goal was to engage my students of Spanish 121-3 with students from the Torcuato Di Tella University to practice their second language skills. My students will practice with the student in Argentina their Spanish, and the student from Argentina will practice their English. So as outline is, first I have a mini introduction, why I wanted to do this project, why it's so important for me. One of the things, I love to travel, and I know that the students also love to travel, but in this situation that we all know, it's very hard to go out. And the only way to learn and to practice the target language is in the country where this language is spoken. So I decided to apply for this grant and in order to implement my project. How I build community between groups of students. I spoke with the president of the international office in the Torcuato Di Tella University in Buenos Aires, Alex Markman, and I explained her my project. She was very excited, and we decided that at the beginning we will open this project for 18 students, for my students of the Spanish class, the special topic, but they were also other students that wanted to participate. So we did kind of open more to the other class. But the most important thing is that we wanted that the student will have the opportunity to practice their target language. One of the things that we were concerned, Alex and I, is that we need to tell the students about the Argentinian and American sensibilities, especially the political correctness, that each one of these groups work or understand this aspect differently. And we didn't want it to have any inconvenience between these two groups. So we decide to explain them before we start the conversations. What activities I create? We have 5 activities. The first one was by email, the student write to their partner they introduce themselves, what kind of technological tool they will use and when they will meet. The other activities 2 to 4, the students were speaking with their partner about some topics that we learn in class, and I wanted that they will learn what they think about the same topics separate in a real world. For example, one of the topics was what means to be student at university, what means to be, what means for them identity, how the gastronomy or the traditional culinary traditions they have here in the state and they have there in Argentina. And the other one was how the politica will influence in the gastronomy. How the session were set up, we decide that we will have pairs, one student from Argentina and one student from the Northwestern. We have 1 hour each session, a total of 4 sessions. 1 hour the student will speak. This 1 hour will divide it half in English, half in Spanish, and then half in English. And they are not allowed to use texting, only Zoom, Skype, or whatever they can use to speak with their partner. What challenges the students face? One of them was the pronunciation. Usually the students who speak, who are exposed to Spanish, they only hear Mexican Spanish or Puerto Rican, but very seldom they hear other accents like Argentinian. One of them was at the beginning, they hear that says show. And my students, or most of the students, didn't understand what is the show. And it was the jaw that we always using in our conversation. Other challenge was the use of the pronoun vos instead of tú. But slowly, as the conversation were developing, the student feel more comfortable. One of the things that the student says that they feel that the Argentinian students speak better English in comparison that they speak Spanish, their Spanish. Other thing that it was amazed me is that they spoke about COVID, because I told them you have this topic, but if you want, you can speak other topic. And as the conclusion, the students were very happy in both universities speaking. They says that the experience they have there was amazing, and they really hope that they can be participating in more events like this. And the other thing, one second. And the other thing is that the nice thing I feel is that they will keep talking to their partners. It's not just, okay, we finish the project and that's it. No, they plan to keep working. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rivka. That is a great outcome. Our next presenter is Beth Hurd. Beth is Professor of Political Science and the Crown Chair in Middle East Studies. So welcome, Beth.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today. I just want to begin, like my colleagues, with a thank you to Kim, to Annalise for supporting this kind of innovative transnational, international work. My linkage project was called Global Conversations on Religion, Race, and Politics. And what we did is proposed a collaboration between myself and my students and 2 overseas colleagues, Nadia Marzuki of CNRS Sciences Po and Mahmoud Ould Mohamedou of the Graduate Institute Geneva, and of course their students, in the context of my graduate seminar this winter called Religion, Race, and Politics, Global and Imperial Perspectives. I also collaborated in the end with 2 additional international professors who wanted to get involved in this network. And that was Professor Jolanda Janssen of the Free University of Amsterdam and Anver Iman of the University of Toronto. And so we had 3 objectives in our partnership. First, really to begin to connect students with their colleagues around the world who share research interests in the national and transnational politics of race and religion. Second, to create online fora for conversation and collaboration across national, institutional, and disciplinary boundaries all at the same time. And third, to teach students on best practices for building and sustaining successful international research networks, which I think is so important, but is not something that we're often taught how to do. It's like teaching, we're just expected to hit the ground running and know how to do it. And so this was an effort to really make that more explicit and to talk about how does this fit into your career as a graduate student, as a postdoc, as a faculty member, and how do you actually do this? 3 aspects of our collaboration I think stood out in particular. First of all, as I just mentioned, we had even more faculty and student engagement with the project than initially anticipated. Professors Mohamedou and Marzuki were very interested and they were involved, and Professor Marzuki came to the class numerous times, but we also had interest from Professors Janssen and Iman that I mentioned and their students. And in fact, several of the University of Toronto students attended the seminar on occasions, numerous occasions, not just when it was their university that was our partner for that day. And one of them even developed close professional connections to a professor in Amsterdam and also with several of our students. So we really felt like things were starting to gel, which was fun. People joined a listserv based out of Amsterdam on religion, race, and secularism that no one had known existed. And that's a really great resource for people looking for information about conferences, grants, and other opportunities. Second, the direct input of my overseas colleagues, and in particular, Professor Marzuki and Professor Janssen, who were really closer to the students, able to attend the seminar in person, really engage with the materials that we were reading, their own readings and other related readings. This really enhanced our students' experience, I think, by really truly globalizing the conversation on race, religion, and politics in a way that we don't always see in this kind of cross-national, cross-cultural perspective in real time. This was really exciting. It was fun, and the students were genuinely enthusiastic, which made it just a fun project to work on. Third, the partnership, I think, contributed to NU's internationalization objectives by supporting my ongoing research collaboration with the 2 colleagues I mentioned, who the 3 of us are part of an IRN, along with Professor Iman at University of Toronto, an international research network. And that network is based jointly here at Northwestern and Sciences Po Paris. And this sort of ability or capacity to kind of bring our students into that conversation with us really directly and to maintain those connections during COVID with our colleagues and even expand them was crucial. I want to say a few words here before I wrap up about lessons learned and recommendations for future efforts. I was really happy to hear from Annalise thinking about doing this again, and that's a great idea. I would say one lesson I learned right away was that it's a good idea to use this partnership as a springboard, as a starting point to secure other support for different kinds of transnational collaboration. So right after I got the International Classroom Partnering Grant, I just went out and started hat in handing it and got some additional support from my department from political science to pay honoraria to some of these visitors. And I think that was really important. And in the end, I was able to get enough additional funding to invite not only the people I mentioned earlier, but also Professor Jennifer Graber of UT Austin, who works on Native American religious history, and Professor Winnie Sullivan, my collaborator in one of these big projects that we were, trying to teach students how to do. And that is a loose funded project called At Home and Abroad, The Politics of American Religion. So all of these speakers coming in provided insight in how to build and sustain these collaborative international partnerships that are so important to our careers these days in my field of study. And they also spoke, I think, critically about the challenges and the benefits and the importance of doing public-facing scholarship as academics. So that was another strand or theme that ran through our project. 3 challenges looking ahead. First, the quarter's so short. That's not news to anybody here. We had limited time to get to know each other. The relationships were just starting to gel. People were starting to make connections even beyond and outside the classroom time. And it would be really exciting if this program would consider expanding this to 2 quarters or maybe even 3 in some cases so that people can develop those connections. Second, I was working on structuring a peer-to-peer component where they would meet outside the class separately. And I think I can go into this later if we have time, but I think I would schedule those meetings as breakouts during class time in the future and then follow up with a very concrete survey at the end of the course in order to get feedback and see how students felt about the collaboration, the peer-to-peer collaboration. It might also be a good idea in this regard to consider offering modest honoraria or funding for an RA as part of the grant, because it was a lot of collaboration. I ended up using my own research funds, which was fine to hire an RA to help with this, but it might be an interesting thing to do. Last, I would just say that I just want to say thank you for your support again, and I really look forward to hearing about others' experiences and their lessons learned as we move forward. So thank you, Kim. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thank you, Beth. Next up, we have Fadia Antabli. Fadia is Assistant Professor of Instruction in Middle East and North African languages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to share with you my showcase with Sorbonne University, Paris 3, but I also, like my colleagues, wanted to thank the team at the Vice President's Office and for International Relations and the Buffett Institute, and also my main department, my director, for supporting my project. So in my presentation, I will actually discuss the logistics of how I came out about the project, and also mainly the co-teaching plans. Hope you find this useful. So I will be discussing the topic, our co-teaching plans, the technology the students utilize, the challenges we faced, and the compensation of this of participating in the project. The process starts with an email letter from the team of Professor Rapp in the International Relations Office. And then if you think that this is something that will work for you, you would just show interest, and immediately the team in the International Relations Office will start thinking about partner institutions. Sometimes faculty come to this with having a partner institutions in mind. If not, like me, this is the first time I'm doing this, so I was very excited about it. The team would immediately find an institution that would match your class design and the topic that you're teaching. They would share that with you. And if you think that once you research it, that works for you, then you would go ahead and start your proposal, writing your proposal. So you wouldn't actually start writing the proposal until after the institution has been identified. When you come to that, then you would actually start the conversation with the partner institution. Faculty. In my case, we identified an excellent faculty partner, Eddie Nasser, who teaches the very similar course that I am teaching, reading Arabic literature and prose. Together, we discussed. We immediately started our meeting. We almost met every week to prepare for the project. In the very beginning, we talked about content, what do we want to address in our project, how can we combine language with literary prose. We designed the curriculum, what did we want to do, and our co-teaching plans. We discussed the meeting times. We both work on different time zones, and we also discussed project period. The meeting time required me to actually go ahead and change my meeting time of the class and switch things around. Our co-teaching plans included academics and culture, increasing in cultural competency for our students during COVID. And for our academics, we wanted to actually do alternate teaching responsibilities where we follow a preset course schedule that is combined between both institutions. and we act as a guest lecturer at the other institutions. And then we also decided to combine literary readings with the advanced language discussions so that we kind of combine both curriculum designs from both institutions. We decided that the best assessment for our students is to do group presentations where students would meet outside class time and discuss the topics that they want to present and work together on writing one joint paper. So that was an amazing result. And we did two presentations, one during the midterm of the project period, when I say that, and then one towards the end. Our culture, we designed cultural programs that was also directly connected to the theme of our course, women empowerment and the role of Arab women in society. So that was also very useful. Like any project during COVID, we faced many challenges, and the most important one was motivation. We saw different of motivation between our students, Northwestern students, and the Paris 3 students. So we needed to work around that and set some rules for that. This is our first joint meeting when we discussed cities and artistic practices with Eddie Nasser, and you see we had 12 students attending. That number changed as we went on. I will be discussing the technology and the time zone and how technology helped us that during the discussion. And also I wanted to address the compensation. The success was amazing. This project was truly rewarding for me. And I was able to build new connections, new friends, working with native speakers. That was noticeably noticed with my students. Thank you all for being here, and I hope you find this useful.
Thank you, Fadia. I really like kind of that you shared the actual process with our audience. So that was really helpful, and thanks. It was really fun to help match you with a partner. So our next speaker is Professor Candy Lee from Medill.
Hello, and let me share my screen and share a slide. Are you able to see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Oh, great. Well, my class is still going on, and it's a hybrid class. So there are 25 people in front of me in the classroom, and there are two teams who cannot be in the classroom. One is in China and the other one is in Tel Aviv at the Partner Institute, which is the Tel Aviv University. And different from the other speakers, and I deeply appreciate this, I've actually been working with Tel Aviv University for a couple of years, and I want to start off thanking both Buffett and Deborah, but the reason I've been working and trying to work so hard with Tel Aviv University is because Deborah introduced me to them a couple of years ago, because I teach a course, I teach several courses at Medill, both in journalism and integrated marketing communications. And they all revolve around how content has grown so much in the last 2 years. In fact, there's been more content created in the last 2 years than in all of recorded history. And Israel is famous for being the startup nation. There are 5,000 new startups in Israel. It's a technology-enabled country. And there are many startups, but they're not very good at thinking about how to market these startups and how to consider the content that's needed so that the startups flourish and thrive and grow. So we've talked for a couple of years about whether we should be having a master's program as a partnership. And so when Buffett decided to have TAL, which is Tel Aviv University's initials, become one of the partner institutes, we decided to work together first to have a class and then to proceed to have deeper discussions about the opportunity for the master's program. So this class that I'm conducting now is the first class of what might be a more long-term opportunity. The scheduling of the class is, as others have referred to, is a concern, of course. So we had to make it 9 o'clock in the morning for their 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but also because of the students in China, it had to work for them as well. But it wasn't just that as the difficulty, it also had to work because of the high holy days for Passover, for evening services, for semester and spring breaks. This required scheduling with many administrators in Israel while we were creating the class. But the class was not co-taught, but we did create co-curriculum so that for every case we had set in the US, we also had equivalent cases that had Israeli components. So the students here, for example, when they were thinking about a content strategy for a farmer's market in America, they also thought about a farmer's market in Israel. And the student teams created opportunities for cross-pollination and cross opportunities with Zoom. So that was really interesting. Each team has a client, and the teams in Evanston and Chicago, I find their clients for them. The team in Israel found a hotel client, and the teams here helped them with information about how hotels are working in the US. So that helped them. And the last thing I will say is that, of course, the war was a complication, and we are conducting it now with some noise and internet connection problems, but the team in Israel attends everything and has Zoom office hours with me weekly, and love the class. Thank you very much, Kim, Deborah, and Annalise, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Candy, and definitely I can see that you would have some challenges this quarter, and I wish the best for your students. Our next presenter is Li Chang, my friend, Li Chang-gu, Professor of Instruction in the Department of Asian Languages and Cultures.
Okay, let me share the screen. Okay, my project is called Cross-Cultural Learning Through Language Partnership. This is organized between me and my colleague in the Department of Asian Languages, Professor Wenping Xie. With the pandemic, we couldn't go to China anymore with our students. So there is a big hole left in our curriculum. Our Chinese language students couldn't have any more opportunity to talk to their to native speakers. So my colleague Wenping and I designed this program, of course, with the support from the Office of Vice President for International Relations and the Buffett Center. And we work with National Tsinghua University, and the project is like this. So let me go to the next one. Okay. All right. First of all, the objectives. The opportunity for the students to interact with language partners in Taiwan and teach each other how to cook and explore cultural differences on academic achievement through interviews and lectures, make a presentation in both languages, and co-author a report in both languages. So we have 11 students from my Chinese one-to-one class, and we have 15 Tsinghua students from Taiwan, and we formed into 11 groups. We meet regularly for 7 weeks from 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the evening, and the morning time in Taiwan. And don't bother to read all these questions. So I have like 25 questions for the first week because I want them to know each other to break the ice. And you can see that it is in both languages. So half of the time, students interview each other in English. The other half interview each other in Chinese. And then week 2, now we concentrate more on family values and school, especially their academic work and how it is perceived by their parents, how they deal with the pressure from their parents. So for week 2, we have 20 questions. And then for week 3, we have a guest speaker, Professor Lin from Taiwan Tsinghua University. She's the director of their International Studies Residential College. So she has the resources to recruit students for us. And her research is also actually her PhD dissertation from Southern Illinois University is on cultural differences. So this is her presentation. It's a great lecture, of course, in English. And then week 4, we make each group, each pair to teach each other a favorite dish. So my student here is teaching her friend how to cook an American dish, and while her partner or her language partner from Taiwan is showing off her pancakes. So they really learned how to cook, and it is a lot of fun. And then week 5 is they work within their own groups. And so before the week 5 comes, each student are assigned or provided with some reading articles in English, and they are all supporting their research paper and their presentation, which is of course on the cultural differences in how to deal with pressures from families, on whether they are okay with their grades from school or whether they are okay with the colleges they get into. And from week 6, I'm sorry, students start presentations. And this is one of them. And this is another. See, this is their findings. Of course, it is not their original findings, but it is from their readings. How different families view their academic work, their grades. And this is another presentation. Okay, Kim, are you there already? Thank you. I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Li Cheng. Okay, and we have one more speaker. That is Kimberly Pusiteri. Kimberly is a faculty member in the Center for Communication and Health in the School of Communication. And I'll say that one of the fun things about working on this year is learning about all the different parts of the university and being really thrilled that people from throughout Northwestern are willing to collaborate with their partners abroad. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thanks, Kim. And I'd agree, just hearing all of the presentations today, it's really inspiring and it's been fun to hear about what everyone else was up to. My collaboration took place during the fall 2020 quarter, and I partnered with a colleague who I went to graduate school with, Dr. Ningxing Wang at the National University of Singapore. And our collaboration allowed students to teach each other what they had learned in their coursework at Northwestern and the National University of Singapore, with the overarching goal of analyzing decisions that global leaders were making during the COVID-19 pandemic. This was happening, the collaboration was in October and November of 2020. My students were coming to the collaboration with that health communication perspective. So they had taken classes focused on health decision-making and patient-provider communication, global healthcare systems, and health campaigns. And Ningxing students who were joining us from the business school at the National University of Singapore were studying leadership and decision-making under uncertainty. So her students were bringing a very different expertise in individual and collective decision-making and had the ability to make some practical suggestions for implementing these decisions at the organizational level. Ningxing and I recruited a small group of only 8 undergraduate students to participate in this collaboration that took place over a 4-week time period. And something that was unique about our collaboration was that it was not tied to a specific class or specific class credit. We just couldn't make it work with our schedules, with Northwestern's quarter starting so late in the fall, and she was already more than halfway through fall semester. So we decided to offer this as an extracurricular experience that students were participating in outside of and on top of their regular coursework. So participating students were able to teach each other what they had learned in their classes in order to analyze health promotion strategies and how those strategies from different global leaders serve to sometimes decrease uncertainty, but sometimes increase uncertainty about what is appropriate health behavior during the pandemic. So we focused on topics like global considerations for COVID-19 decision-making, negotiated decisions and communication between patients and caregivers, and various strategies for coping with uncertainty. And to tackle these topics, we had a series of asynchronous discussion boards on Canvas that spanned the first 3 weeks. And then in week 4, we set up a series of Zoom conversations where different pairings and triads of students could discuss what they learned and how they were going to maybe understand things differently going forward from the collaboration. And looking back on it, it was a ton of fun. It was a success, even though we were only able to recruit 8 students. Those students were highly engaged and they taught each other a lot of their previous coursework, which was inspiring to me and to Ningxing, that our students were taking what they learned in the classroom and applying it to a unique and highly relevant context. But as we all know, sometimes the most significant source of learning comes as a surprise. And in this case, beyond sharing classroom knowledge, students really benefited by being able to share, but also hear about the experiences of different people during the pandemic who were experiencing their day-to-day life under very different circumstances. Students talked about their personal approaches to managing uncertainty as a student and as a family member and as an engaged global citizen. And we saw students providing support to one another, providing suggestions, but also just describing how their daily lives had changed. And students were really surprised in the disparity of messaging around the globe and even in different parts of the United States, where 2 Northwestern undergrads were joining from Illinois, but the other 2 were in Georgia and California. So this offered a really unique opportunity to give our undergrads a window into the lives of students living halfway around the world or on the other side of the United States. And as some of the other faculty have mentioned, there were some logistical elements that required creativity and flexibility and coordination. The additional time and effort that it took to run this collaboration outside of a regular class, so as an extracurricular, was something that I think I didn't accurately calculate how much time that would take. And then navigating the time difference was something that we all had to figure out a little bit. But overall, this is a really terrific experience, a great way to engage with students who are interested in health communication and wanting to learn more about global perspectives. And I see my time is running short, so I'm happy to elaborate on any of these things during the Q&A.
Thank you, Kimberly. Didn't even give me a chance to get on the screen. Thank you so much to everyone. I'll give you a round of applause. It was really great. A few of you have talked about time zones and issues of scheduling. And so maybe Fadia, you had said that you would like to elaborate on that. So if you wouldn't mind joining us and telling us a little bit about how to minimize, in your opinion,
Yes.
challenges with this. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And if you allow me, I would like to share this screen with the group. We had issues with the time zone being working with 6 hours time difference, and technology actually resolved these issues for us mainly. The students needed to first meet each other, discuss the topics that they needed to work on together, writing the paper and preparing for the presentation. So everybody in the group decided to use WhatsApp. But with WhatsApp, there was a time delay, and for them to work on WhatsApp, they needed the phone numbers of each other's. So with the email, there was also a time delay between the two groups. But once that particular thing is resolved, and they started communicating on WhatsApp, and that worked so well. So to resolve the time zone issues between the groups and the teams as they were working on their final projects, Google Docs, the idea is that working offline was the main thing for them. And so Google Docs solved that for them. And also a project that I introduced to all the team, to all the students in both institutions, VoiceThread. VoiceThread is a web app that allows the students to work together on presentations offline. And I would love to just show one example. So here in this presentation, 3 students, 1 from Northwestern, 2 from Paris, 2 native speakers work on one presentation about the role of women in society, and they didn't need to work at the same time, but they all managed to be there together and do their work and submit it on time. So that I thought was very successful, and that also resolved these issues for the students, and it was noted in their feedback.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share any tricks or tips they have for navigating time zones? Great. I do want to say that one big challenge that came up that I was not expecting was that we have to plan ahead and get students access to Canvas. So if you were thinking about doing this, I am now an expert, as I'm sure many of our presenters are, but there's lots of things to consider. And of course, that's why we're doing this today, so you can learn. We can all learn from each other. We also had an interesting situation where 2 of our faculty members, Li Chang and Kimberly, were working with students who were not enrolled in a course, but we're still participating. Lee Chang, could you tell us how you got the students who are not enrolled in a course motivated and committed to the project?
Okay, first of all, Wenping has a good friend who is the president of Tsinghua University. And through the president, we were introduced to the director of their international residential college. And so in this college, she selected 15 students for us through screening, answering all kinds of questions. So all these 15 students are dedicated. And then on top of that, we make sure to let them know that, first of all, the finished product is a co-authored paper in both Chinese and in English. If that student cannot use that paper for this particular course, they can by all means use that paper for any other courses in the future in their university. And also with the support of my dear colleague Yanka, we are designing a beautiful certificate of completion. So it will be signed by me and by our co-professors. So to acknowledge their contribution. Last but not the least, I verbally and I sincerely promised the students, the 15 students, that if by any chance they come to Chicago and visit Northwestern University, I will, from my personal part, entertain them and host them. Thank you.
That's wonderful. I love that the president was involved. So now I know why they were committed. Kimberly, I don't think the president was involved with your students. Can you share about that?
Yeah, Ningxing and I sent an email to students who had been previously enrolled in classes that kind of fit the scope of the collaboration and offered them the opportunity to apply to participate. And in that application, we just asked for 2 paragraphs, one paragraph about why they wanted to participate in the collaboration, and a second paragraph about what they thought they would bring to the collaboration that would enhance it. And so I think that initial hurdle led to students who were more serious applying rather than, it's the Northwestern way to say yes to things. So this added one hurdle. And then after we selected the small group of students, we asked them to just reply to an email where we asked for a commitment to engage in the 4 weeks of activities and to not kind of drop off because they were needed to make the collaboration run effectively. So it seemed like the combination of those 2 things was enough to lead, and it was a small group of students, so I think there inherently is more accountability there, but it ended up being a successful strategy for us.
Great, thank you. Staying with students and thinking about bringing students from different areas of the world together, Sarah, I wonder if you could talk to us about what kinds of activities you did to build community amongst the students. I mean, you've shared throughout the quarter quite a few fun photos of you and the students, and just if you could tell us kind of what kinds of activities did you participate in?
Yeah, sure. We were concerned because Zoom and like strangers in the Zoom room, right? So one of the things was how we set it up. As I mentioned, we used that Flipgrid that they got to know each other and present themselves to each other before they actually met in person. We assigned them peer dyads or triads. So they had a very small group with which to interact. And then they had we did like double groups. So there was a teeny group and a mid-sized group. And then we had some large group interaction. And we did that, number one, so that folks would feel comfortable over the 8 weeks or 9 weeks communicating with one person regularly. That was like their person. And then also having an opportunity to cross-fertilize in a mid-level group. And then this idea of full group participation. So we had all these different levels of communication, hopefully to help students both connect individually and then connect with the group a little bit on a larger scale. And then, of course, also providing an opportunity for the asynchronous participation for folks. We had several folks for whom, many folks for whom English was not their first language. And so from Leonard's perspective, my collaborator, that was a really good opportunity for them to communicate professionally with professional discourse in English. They all spoke English fluently, but it was an opportunity for that communication. That said, having the asynchronous content was more than just the time zone. It helped with that, right? So we weren't always logging in at the inconvenient time, but it also provided opportunity for folks to participate without the pressure of the verbal communication. So it was like multiple means of expression, multiple means of participation, as well as taking into account varying kinds of interactions with both one-on-one, small group, and then larger group to facilitate, multiple opportunities to engage and develop relationships over time.
Great, thank you. Beth, you worked with graduate students as well as Sarah did. You talked a little bit about the effect of the program, the project on your graduate students. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? And also, did you see different learning outcomes for the students participating in this project than students you've taught in the past in the same seminar or a similar seminar?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Those are really good questions. The students, I would say overall, were incredibly energized by each other's presence and by the fact that there were people in several other countries who were engaged in this conversation, and who many of them, topics around race and religion and politics are kind of heated right now and very much politicized and polarized. And so to be able to compare literally our experience here with people in Toronto, with people in Europe, with people in North Africa was very intense. It was very energizing, and it was really exciting to be able to experience that. So I would say in terms of payoffs, there was that energy. And then beyond that, we really focused very explicitly and specifically on this idea of how do you build an international research network? Like I said, it's like the sausage making thing where nobody knows how it's done, but somehow all these full professors end up having these connections. And my goal was to teach them how to make those connections, how to forge them, how to sustain them. And so I think that one of the outcomes of this was that students have a sense of the work they need to put in to do that, that it doesn't just happen spontaneously, that they need to make these investments in each other, in themselves, in their connections with each other, and that those possibilities will bear fruit, but that it does take some time. And I got the sense that students could see that germinating in a way that I hadn't seen in previous seminars. The third, in answer to your second part of the question, the third thing I would say, and the last thing I'll say, is that the student papers who engaged the work of my colleagues, who were the other professors that were involved in the seminar, the student papers that engaged their work were much richer, better, more nuanced, more sophisticated than the average graduate student paper that you get at the end of a quarter, because they had spoken with that person, with that author, they had posed them questions, they had engaged with them, and they felt connected in a way that allowed them to write a much more sophisticated piece of work at the end of the quarter.
That's so encouraging and wonderful to hear. And I do know that a few people had mentioned that about as their outcomes. Candy, you've taught this course as well, right, before? And do you see, I know you're still teaching and in the middle of the quarter, but have you seen a change in the way that your students interact with the content?
I except for, the emergency change of the pandemic last spring, I hadn't taught it on Zoom before. So this idea of a hybrid course where some people were here and some people were on Zoom, I haven't done. But certainly the students in Israel I think will tell you, because I've asked them, how is this compared to their other courses? I've asked that, and they've given anonymous feedback. And I've asked the students here, I asked them for assessment after each class, and I'm getting great feedback from them. So I think from their point of view and from my own personal learning point of view, I've gotten, I feel like I've developed a lot more, and that they feel that their contributions are much more globally oriented than it's ever been before. And because content has no borders, that you really need to have a global swath when you're thinking about content, but we haven't done that before. And so I feel like the course has a whole new panorama to it, and it's appreciated. The other quick answer to your question is that the TAL students always say in answer to the assessments how quickly we respond, the teachers respond, how quickly the students respond, which clearly doesn't happen in their school. And it's made the students more appreciative here as well. So there's been an opportunity for the students here to say, oh, what happens in Israel and what happens in your higher education. And so they've had little conversations around that as well. And that's been very helpful.
That's really great. A part of cross-cultural understanding that maybe we hadn't anticipated would come. This kind of relates to my next question, which is for Rivka. Thinking about how we approach our classrooms, even as individuals, do you have advice about how co-instructors can work together to align their definitions of success, align kind of what constitutes successful learning outcomes for students?
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, I think the first aspect is to be flexible and open mind, because I remember when the students start to speak with their partners, they feel a little uncomfortable because they were thinking that the native speaker Spanish will judge them about their errors or about how they pronounce, and they feel comfortable with that. I mean, they didn't feel that they have to act correctly because someone else was checking their pronunciation or checking their vocabulary. So I think if we as a faculty or co-instructors can be a little open and not be so much focuses in correct the student, we will get more improvement in the languages. And also the motivation that the student will have to participate will be bigger. That's the reason when I ask the student to write a paragraph about their experience after each session, I didn't grade grammar, I didn't grade a concordancia or something. I just wanted that they will express themselves. And I just was interested in their content. And I think if we are flexible and if we are more open mind, and one other important thing is to share. If you sharing with your co-instructor, you will get much more benefits about that, and the outcome will be great.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to discuss kind of how they worked with their teaching partner to grade or to move the curriculum forward?
I do want to say that actually this seminar itself has been very helpful because I've learned a lot from all of you.
Thank you. So let's see, we have some questions in the chat. And this question comes from Sarah Tully. She asks, for those who did not know their international partner beforehand, how did you navigate building that new relationship while also planning your collaboration together? It's very similar to what we just asked. Did only one person not know their collaborator, or Fadia?
I did not know them before, or did know him. I didn't know him before. Yeah, but it was really easy and natural. We just worked around it. We just decided on a meeting time and immediately introduced each other and started talking about content. It was very motivating to see how other faculty member in other institutions work around the same around literary content and how they address their work, the structure of their work. So that was very educational and rewarding for me. But the relationship with Eddie Nasser was pretty natural. He was just into it. He immediately just started sharing material. And what was so useful is that I was able to look at new content that is currently published, and that the one that is highly motivating for youth rather than old published content. So he shared these types of resources, which was truly amazing, and students really enjoyed reading these literary works by new writers, I would say.
Yeah, that's really interesting to just find out what your partner is teaching in their classroom. Rivka, you have your hand up?
Yeah. I didn't know Alex, and then I think was that we spoke the same language, we spoke Spanish, so it was much easier for me to explain her about the project. And also she was very open to participate and to find the students in Argentina who wanted to participate with us. Initially, I asked her that I only need 18 students, and we ended by having 56 students. So I work with many of my classes. The other one, it wasn't in the curriculum, but the student wanted to participate and to be involved. And it was amazing. So thank you. Thank you so much.
That's great. And Deborah mentions in the chat here, importantly, our partner that we were able to pair with Faria actually came to us from someone who was teaching with someone who can't be on the call today through the grant, Isabel Alfandari. And so just again, for everyone, to think about how much we gain from our partners abroad and building these relationships with our with institutional partners. So yes, so thank you, Isabel, for that. I don't know if you're on the call today. So actually, I'd like to flip it over and think about, for those of you who did know your teaching partner, how did you know that it was the right fit? And like Kimberly, I think you said you went to graduate school with that person. Hopefully teaching together did not ruin the friendship. So would anyone care to speak to that? How do you know that it's the right person?
I think for me, it was just engaging in a kind of casual conversation with her about it, where I sent along my idea and asked her if she had the time, the capacity, the interest to work on it. And also kind of telling her that I would be willing to take the lead on creating a lot of the structure, and putting together the Canvas class and outlining what I would need on her end to make it successful. And just kind of being sensitive and understanding where it was, I don't have the capacity for this. Okay, fine, I can take that over, and just allowing for the give and take, I think, made it really successful for us.
Anyone else? Sorry, my phone's ringing. Okay, well, if there are no other questions for coming in through the chat, I would like to thank everybody today. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to your partners abroad, to your students, and of course to Annalise and Deborah for working together and supporting me and Carrie Fuse and all the other staff who worked on this project. As you know, we recently announced a call for proposals for courses taught next year, academic year 2021 to 22. And you should find a link to the call in the chat. Before we end the program, though, I would like to hand the virtual microphone back over to Annalise Morales.
Well, I just want to say this has been a remarkable conversation. I just really enjoyed listening to what everyone had to say, and just the creativity and commitment that everyone here shows to the students and to creating these kinds of global experiences. And Kim, I just want to thank you for this bringing us together today, and to also to Ahmed and others who worked on that. And couldn't agree more with Deborah that this really shows the value of our international partnerships and how much they bring back in surprising and unexpected ways. So just really want to thank all of you so much. And again, if you know, we've heard such a diversity of approaches today, which is really exciting. If you have an idea and it's none of these approaches, don't feel constrained. We're also open to just about anything. Try us. So we're open to whatever thoughts people have. Really, the more diverse, the better. Please do apply. Please do encourage your colleagues to apply. Let your departments know. Sometimes it's hard for us to get the message out. So please do let folks know. And thank you to all of our faculty for the amazing work you do, you know, often, you know, just on the fly without anybody knowing about it, just for all of our students. So we're just so grateful. So thank you, everyone.